इसका तो कभी पीछे तारीख में जिक्र नहीं है। मर्द मर्द के साथ तो करता है, लेकिन यूरोप में औरतें भी औरतों के साथ करती हैं। बच्चों भी, उनके भी अलग ग्रुप है, अलग तंजीम है। लेस्बियंस का मतलब लेस्बियंस
सरकार 3 लाख मर्द मर्दों के साथ हैं सैन फ्रांसिस्को में और 4 लाख औरतें औरतों के साथ।
सैन फ्रांसिस्को?
जी हाँ सरकार, सैन फ्रांसिस्को डेविस
वो
बर्कले
तब हुई ना जब मर्दों ने उनका रुख छोड़ दिया तब।
औरतें पसंद ही नहीं मर्दों को,
उनकी आदतें देख के। तो अब तुम्हारी बीवी तुम्हें किसी लड़के के साथ देख ले तो उनको पसंद करेगी? इसी तरह ना उन औरतों ने सुना या देखा ना तो उनको पसंद नहीं करती, आपस में लग।
टीवी में से तो ये एक्टर ऐसा था, उसने बताया कि मैं एक फंक्शन में गई था तो उधर एक लड़की को देखा तो मुझे वो पसंद आ गई, तो बस मैं उसके साथ हो गया, मैंने सब चीज छोड़ दी। और वो
ये हवानी आते हैं।
अच्छा।
जिस तरह हवानी एक दूसरे को चढ़ते हैं, ये हवानी आदत उभरी हुई है ना, हवानी आदत की वजह से दूसरे को चाटना चूटना
फितरत में अंदर,
फितरत में, हवानी फितरत में अंदर एक है मखलूक, हवानी मखलूक, और जो रूह हवानी है ना, ये उसकी वजह से होता है ऐसा।
अच्छा वो गालिब आ गई।
फिर नफ्स गालिब आ जाता है, शैतानी कल्ब आ जाता है, रहमानी अल्लाह। हवानी में जो है ना वो ज्यादा वर्किंग नहीं है, ज्यादा चाटना चूटना।
जी सर,
वो हवानी फितरत है।
सही है सर।
तो फिर वो चाटती चूटती होंगी और ये करती होंगी।
बिल्कुल सही सर, एग्जैक्टली।
My colleague just mentioned about the gays and the lesbians and the nature in people, and Sagar just elaborated on that, explaining that how from the inner self spiritually this nature has evolved, that many of the men are engaged in these activities and some of the women have disliked this, therefore they have turned against such men, and a certain very small percentage may have turned lesbians as a result of this reason. But the most important thing to understand is that we have what is inside us known as Ruh Havani, which is the animal spirit, the animal soul, and in addition to that we also have the nafs, the self or the ego, which is a spiritual body which resides at the navel point, which is then connected to Satan. And when these two natures within the physical body become completely overwhelming and they take over the heart, which is the dwelling place of God and the dwelling place of good and goodness, then this nature you see becomes apparent in the physical form, whereby the human being behaves just like an animal. And just as the animal sort of, their nature is, they have no difference between brother and sister, or if you see a cat litter or dogs, in the same way certain human beings, when their nature becomes so overwhelming, the animal nature, then they behave like this. They can either become gay or lesbian or whatever. It's the inner self, the animal soul and the nafs, which has taken over completely the heart and all the other goodness and the attributes of the other spiritual bodies. And the inner animal nature is expressed physically in this way. And that's actually the spiritual explanation of why this happens.
What about there are gay or lesbian people that have love for God in their heart?
Right. So I पूछ रहे हैं क्या कुछ लोग भी ऐसे होंगे जो गलत फेल करते हैं, लेकिन उनके दिलों के अंदर भी शायद अल्लाह की मोहब्बत हो सकती है? Yes, there are many. There are many gay and lesbian people who have the love of God in their heart.
क्योंकि उनकी एक जो ये मखलूक है ना उसमें अल्लाह की तलब है, लेकिन ये शैतानी आवानी मखलूक है गालिब आ गई हैं, उसकी वजह से वो शैतानी करता है।
Because they still have this one spiritual body next to their heart, which has goodness or the love of God inside them. But because the other spiritual bodies become so strong and powerful that it's actually overwhelmed this spiritual body, therefore physically they behave in this way. But many still have that inclination towards God and His love.
Wouldn't God then not judge them by their heart and not their actions?
तो सरकारी पूछ रही क्या फिर अल्लाह ताला उनकी नीयत को ना देखिए और उनका फैसला?
मैं बताता हूँ। फिर जब वो गुनाह करते हैं ना इसकी वजह से, तो ये दिल उनका पछताते भी हैं, मलामत करते हैं काम से ये गलती क्यों हो गई।
Then Sakar said that those people, when they commit the misdeeds and engage in their activities, they also afterwards regret it. they feel a lot of regret in their hearts.
तो फिर अल्लाह ताला फरमाता मुझे वो लोग भी पसंद है जो गुनाहों के ऊपर मलामत करते हैं.
Then God declares that I love those people also that after committing a misdeed that they regret it afterwards also.
और इन लोगों का कोई नुक्ता जो ना उनकी बख्शिश का बायस बन जाता है.
And such people, they may have one intention or one factor, one element of this nature, meaning that they've committed a misaction and then they regret it afterwards, that they feel remorse, then God may forgive them just for that one reason.
What if they die with love in their heart for God and they never have reached that state of regret?
सवाल पूछ रहे हैं कि अगर उनके दिल के अंदर अल्लाह की कुछ मोहब्बत है और उन्होंने मलामत नहीं हुई गुनाह करने के बाद और वो मर गए तो फिर उनके साथ क्या होगा?
नहीं, मलामत होती है. जिसमें है मोहब्बत है उसको जरूर मलामत होगी.
That is not found. Actually, that person who has an iota of God's love in their heart, they will have remorse and regret. Even if it's at the time of death or even before death. A person who has love of God in their heart, whatever misdeed they may have committed, they will have regret and remorse for it at some stage in their life. And it may be that one thing that God forgives everything for that thing.
The thing that I can't understand about this whole point is I see people that are together in heterosexual relationships that don't have a purity of love and love for God, that sometimes people of the same sex, in other words, it's okay because they're male and female, and yet there may be two males or two females that truly love each other and that worship God, and yet this is not okay, but yet there's a male and female, and because they're opposite sex and don't even have maybe as much love for God,
Yeah.
it's okay just because.
But the two things which you should not confuse, what is important to understand is that as far as the physical relationships are concerned, Sarkar have stated that God has ordained that they be man and woman. He created this relationship, not man and man or woman and woman. That's the first thing. That God has created it this way, and it's His will and wish, for which we have we can't intervene or ask Him why He did this. It's His will. And the second thing is that as far as the individual's actions are concerned, the criteria is the love of God. If in a heterosexual relationship there is no love of God, it doesn't mean they will necessarily go to heaven. But in a lesbian or gay relationship, what Sarkar is saying that if, say you have two gays, if in one of their hearts there is the love of God, then automatically that person will also have a regret, will have a remorse for his actions. Deep down inside their self, they will know that what they're doing is wrong. And as a result of that remorse, it may be, it's so small that we can't imagine it, but it will exist because he has the love of God. The love of God and the remorse go hand in hand.
So it may exist
And
even though we won't know it between them and God. So
if there is the love of God, it will go hand in hand. The remorse will exist, and then what will happen? Their entire life may have been spent in these actions, bad deeds, and they may have provoked God's anger. But just because they had one little bit of regret or remorse for what they did, God may just forgive them for that one reason. And the whole of the actions, like you said, the actions, it won't matter to God. But because He looks at the heart, they had that love and they had that remorse or regret for what they did before the sight of God, which in effect means that they feared God. He'll forgive them for just that one reason. That's how merciful He is.
चलो अफसोस नहीं होगा, एहसास होगा ना मैंने गलत किया.
Yes, God. Even if they had no remorse, at least He'll have some feeling. The person may have some feeling that what I did was wrong. And God may forgive him just for that one reason, which means that His mercy is mighty than His wrath.
How does God demonstrate anger towards humans?
So I पूछेंगे अल्लाह ताला अपना जो गज़ब जब उसको होता है तो वो कैसे दिखाता है इंसानों को, कैसे बर्पा होता है?
वो तो किसी भी सूरत में हो सकता है ना, वो तबाही की तरफ.
इसका destruction,
कोई बीमारी लगा दे,
इसका some illness, destruction on a small scale, large scale.
और उसको भूख की तंगी दे दे.
इसका famine.
And God does become angry with humans.
इतनी सजा देता जितना बर्दाश्त करना.
इसका He will only punish people or humanity as much as they can bear. तो पूछिए इसका अल्लाह ताला को वाकई गुस्सा आता है लोगों पर, इंसानियत पर.
वो रहमान भी बहुत है.
इसका is merciful also.
गुस्सा भी बहुत है.
And He can become angry as well.